computer. Okay, welcome back to the podcast. My good friend, Senator Joseph Addabbo Jr., New York State Senator from the 15th District of New York, who is the chair of the Committee on Racing, Gaming, and Wagering, and has been at the epicenter of all the fun gaming and gambling discussions in New York State over the past couple of years. How you doing, Senator?
Oh, good, Dan. Thanks.
Yeah, you've had a busy couple of years. Looking back, I guess you can go back to 2012. Well, actually, before we start to talk about gaming, I want to get into your background a little bit. I noticed here on the resume, and I didn't want to overlook this because I think we share something very important in common. You graduated from St. John's University in 1986?
Something like that, yes. Yes, I did.
Okay, so you were there in the middle of the Chris Mullin, Walter Berry, Mark Jackson, Bill Winnington era. How amazing was that time period?
It was exciting to watch them walk around campus, of course. You know, I looked up to them because they were like, 7 feet tall, but it was wild. It was a wild time. And those battles with Georgetown at the time, it was fun.
Yeah, I was at the game at the Garden where John Thompson tried to one-up Louis, and he opened up his, I guess, suit vest to reveal an ugly sweater.
Yeah.
I mean, those were legendary times. You had Ewing, Mullin, think of all the legendary, and later NBA players. Those were sort of the halcyon days of the Big East, and you got a chance to go to St. John's and attend those games as a student.
Yeah, and it was a turning point for St. John's too, which really wasn't on a map. It was just a local school, but obviously those times, those players, that coach put us on a map nationally. So it was an interesting time.
Yeah. Do you think they'll ever get back to being a major program with? I mean, I know they have a good head coach and they're turning the corner a little bit. But can they compete for NCAA titles in the future? Is that something that those times are kind of in the past, in the 1980s? Are they going to be able to ever get back there?
One alumni can only hope.
Okay, so moving on. I mean, for a New York sports fan in the mid 80s, you had St. John's, you had the Knicks winning the Ewing lottery, the great Mets teams, the Giants teams. I could talk about New York sports in the mid 80s. All day long, and you were right in the middle of it. So moving on, you've had a busy past couple of years as a senator who chairs the critical gaming committee in New York State. Do you have any surprises in store for us for 2023?
We always have something up our sleeve. I couldn't do it alone. I have a great team up in Albany, and certainly counterparts in the assembly. And really, I just am thankful for the opportunity of chairing that committee, that we have the opportunity of raising, not only revenue for the state, but educational funds. Pre-COVID, we were doing $3 billion a year just education from gaming. And that's a significant number. And I always tell people, even if you don't like gaming, if you never place a bet, the bottom line is you're going to benefit from gaming in New York, if not through education, through jobs, or through revenue.
Well, so, you're a bit. Go ahead.
I'm just, like I said, we have a great team, and I don't want my team to get bored, so we'll be somewhat creative in 2023, but we do have some things planned.
Well, you're going to have a huge bump from downstate casinos. I mean, how is it in a country with 40 or more states that have some form of commercial casino gambling, that the financial capital of the world, New York City, doesn't even have casinos? This is going to be the year. Can you tell us a little bit about the sort of the plan for downstate casinos in New York City? I mean, that's kind of a loaded question, but we're about to enter a critical phase where we're going to get some clarity around who's going to get those casino licenses.
It's exciting. It really is, because I think we're going to be interested to see who partnered with who and what kind of the proposals are that are going to benefit the state, both long-term and short-term. Again, I give a lot of credit to the legal counsel that drafted legislation that was so carefully drafted to make sure that the Gaming Commission's on track, like we did with mobile sports betting. And to the credit of Gaming Commission, that they did actually mobile sports betting well ahead of schedule, well before the Super Bowl. So I know the Gaming Commission has the wherewithal and obviously the means necessary to do this downstate licenses. So, probably by the fourth quarter of this year, toward the end of the year, we'll start getting the applications, and they'll be reviewed, and we'll see. 3 downstate licenses. It should be interesting.
So much speculation about who's going to be getting these licenses. I mean, you're in the 15th district. I think Resorts World was part of your, I guess, territory before, everything got divvied up, and maybe they're not in your district anymore. The conventional wisdom is that Resorts World and Empire Resorts up at Yonkers Raceway have the inside track because they already operate casino-style games through their VLT facilities. But on the other hand, they're already generating significant VLT money to the state. So how can you balance, the issue of, do you give them any type of favoritism over speed to market versus potentially losing some of the cash flow and revenue stream that you're already getting by virtue of the fact that they're incumbent VLT facilities? So how does that work out in terms of prioritizing and ranking the bidders?
Well, I think you have partly right here. So we only have 3 licenses to give out to the southern portion of the state, starting from the Hudson Valley down. Mm-hmm. We could not just give MGM and Resorts World a license just like that. There had to be a process, although they are deserving, in my opinion. They've proven themselves over the years to be successful, be good neighbors, an economic generator for the state, employing thousands. But the idea is they'll be part of a process. And even if we do a speed to market analysis as part of the project, it's a mere part of the process, and somebody like Resorts World could be up and running in months with a full gaming license. But that is what an open, transparent, credible process is for, a good government process that's good for the people. And we have to look at this in terms of, again, short-term, long-term, what is best for the state in terms of revenue, jobs, educational funding. So we'll only get to really see the clear picture once all the applicants are in, and we can start to compare these applicants. Because right now what we're hearing is isolated, proposed locations and rumors. And yeah, these rumors sound nice, but when if we compare it to another site, you'll be able to say, hey, this one's good, but this one's better. And this one will be maximizing our potential. And that's what you look to do. You look to maximize your potential for the state in terms of gaming. So some site may sound nice today, but you got to look at it 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road and make sure there's sustainability there.
Okay, we're looking at, if we talk about Empire World, or which would be in Yonkers, Resorts World in Queens, left out of this discussion is the largest population center in all of New York State, which is Manhattan. It's inconceivable to me that casino siting would avoid the largest population center in the entire world simply over concerns that, there may be some community opposition, or maybe it's impractical to find space. Can you handicap or at least speak to the viability of Manhattan as a potential casino site?
I can only say this because, the process is in the total hands of the Gaming Commission. That, citing and analyzing the applicants, it's all in their hands. So the legislature has nothing to do with it. So anything I say is my opinion. But from what I hear, and just to think about what I hear in certain circles of the industry, is that, if you do a casino in Manhattan, that's probably the only one that our main competitor, Jersey, would be worried with. That if we do a casino in Manhattan, I would probably venture to say that New Jersey will change its constitution to allow casinos outside of Atlantic City. I don't think Jersey's concerned with any other site other than Manhattan. Manhattan does have its own built-in tourism base, does have a population, and you can probably credibly look at a site in Manhattan that does fit or be amenable or palatable to the electeds, because there is a difference between new construction versus an existing building that's not being utilized. And so if we were to look at a building that's not being utilized, a vacant building that, again, can cosmetically fit within the look of Manhattan, I bet there's probably not an obstacle, even local opposition that might occur, that there's not an obstacle that can't be overcome. And that's my opinion. I lived through Resorts World in Queens. Yes, there were naysayers, there was concerns, and what would bring, oh my gosh, when a casino opens up in Queens, well, the earth's going to stop spinning. They've been a great neighbor of Resorts World for over 10 years now. I know there are concerns. We can address those concerns, no matter really where the site is selected.
Yeah, 15 or so years ago, I remember the New York Jets were planning a stadium in Midtown Manhattan, and
community
opposition. Oh, right, you're on the city council. That's right. And I remember, James Dolan was sort of behind some of the litigation, and essentially that idea got quelched because of a well-funded opposition. Would a site in Manhattan be able to overcome similar type of opposition? Whereas the New York Jets, who really wanted to be in Manhattan, had to fold their tent and enter into that deal, that stadium sharing deal with the New York Giants. I thought that was a missed opportunity at the time.
It was.
But would a casino site in Manhattan engender the same type of hostility that a proposed New York Jets stadium did a number of years ago?
Yeah, unfortunately with the Jets stadium, just really quick with the Jets stadium, they tied it with the Olympics. New York City at the time was going for the Olympics. And they tied that stadium proposal to the Olympics. And once New York City lost the Olympic bid, that stadium really lost momentum and really failed at that point. But like I said, in my opinion, only because I've dealt with the concerns, again, the unknown concerns, the fear of the unknown, depending on what the applicant looks like, what partners are with a proposal possibly in Manhattan, that I personally believe concerns, issues can be overcome.
Okay, that's really good to hear. I don't have any skin in the game, but I just felt it's just so obvious that you want to choose Manhattan to provide some symmetry and balance when you have casinos in the outer boroughs, but nothing right in the center point, and they wouldn't be cannibalizing one another nearly as much. So you mentioned that the law has already been passed and you don't have a significant role during the selection process, but you did create a scheme for community, I guess, advisory involvement. Can you explain what role local communities and lawmakers and governmental officials, politicians, are going to play in the siting process through this community advisory, situation?
Right. So that was one important ingredient that basically, nobody can just wake up one day, look out the window and there's a casino there. That basically the community, and it should be involved in what would be, again, a long-term investment for a certain community. So when a site is proposed and on its way possibly to being selected, a small group of 6 will be selected, local elected officials, community, I believe, as a rep. And of those 6, 4 have to say, yes, this is a good location. Like I said, I think this is good. It's good to have input. It makes, I remember when Resorts World was working with the local community as they were trying to become a good neighbor. I think it's important because, again, it's a long-term investment that casino is hopefully going to be around for the next 30, 40, 50 years or more. And they should be a part of the community no matter where they are. And so it starts with initially a very early step with a proposal for a site and local input at that point. And I think it's an integral part of what we did legislatively.
Okay. Senator Addabbo, is Willets Point in your district?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But I am
you are a Mets fan. Steve, the Mets are doing really well. They just swept the Subway Series with the Yankees 2-0, tears, but that might prompt the Yankees to go out and acquire Juan Soto. But putting that aside for a second, the name of Steve Cohen has been buzzing around the discussions for a potential casino site in Willets Point, partnering with either the Hard Rock Group or the Las Vegas Sands Casino. What do you make of the prospect of a second casino site in Queens? And could that work?
Yeah, I love Steve Cohen's vision of cleaning up that area, Willets Point around Citi Field. As a Met fan, you go to Citi Field, and if you want to partake in a restaurant or go somewhere before or after the game, there's really very limited choices there. So I do love Steve Cohen's vision for renovating or, again, reinvigorating that area. When I was in the city council, though, that area was earmarked for housing. So again, I wouldn't want to lose that element of housing that's so needed, not only in the borough, but in the city, but there's plenty of acreage. The idea here is, again, Willets Point may be a site that people go, wow, it's a great location near the airport and so forth and so on. Any location has to be compared with the whole package of applicants. So I can't talk about Willets Point until I see what's available. What are my choices, or I should say the Gaming Commission? What are the choices for the Gaming Commission so that Willets Point can be compared to other sites? Because again, we only have 3 shots at this. And so you want to maximize, at least I do, I hope the Gaming Commission does, and hopefully the governor does, you want to maximize the potential for revenue, educational funds, jobs even addiction programs. You want to maximize your potential there. And the only way you can do it is by looking at every single one of those credible applicants and making a decision on which 3 are the best.
Are there any other applications that are being fronted by a first place team in Major League Baseball? I think he has significant political capital and street credibility right now. I mean,
no question. And that's why I appreciate, the effort of Steve Cohen. But it's going to be interesting. That's why I can't wait for the siting board to be selected, the location board, and then the gaming commission start to look at these applicants. I'm so interested and with much enthusiasm, who's going to be partnering with who, who is going to be, where. And I think it's going to be a great process. It's going to be great to watch. And like I said, hopefully 3 in the end will really benefit the state.
You mentioned the fourth quarter. When's the earliest we're going to see the requests or the proposals submitted or the bids by the prospective candidates? How soon?
October 6th is the next trigger date. That's the date, I believe, that the location and siting board must be formed or organized. And then after that date, after it's organized, then they could start to receive applications and submissions. Again, the Gaming Commission, give them a lot of credit. Maybe they can expedite the time frame. We'll see.
Will we have new casinos in downstate New York by the end of 2023, or does the construction process have a much longer timeline than that?
Again, it all depends on the group of applicants, because Resorts World, like I said, they're ready. Resorts World, plug and play. If they get the license, Resorts World, they're up and running in months. But yet another one will pay upwards or close to $1 billion for that license, put it in their back pocket, and it may take them 4 or 5 years before they find a site, break ground, and ribbon cut. That's that's a tall order for someone who just shelled out $1 billion for a gaming license, but that's what it's valued. That could be the worth here in New York State. But it's going to be a process to find a new site to build a new casino. It could take 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
So it'd be very interesting.
Yeah, two more questions before we move on from the downstate casinos. I read somewhere that there's a minimum tax rate associated with slot machines and table games, but otherwise, will it be a competitive bidding scenario like with online sports betting, where the applicants, basically choose a bidding price in terms of proving to the state that they're going to be able to generate the most economic upside? Will it be akin to the way online sports betting worked?
We saw the process for mobile sports betting work so well. And again, great credit to those who drafted the language on the legislation, because it really laid it out in detail, what the parameters are, what the qualifications are. It laid it all out there. There was about, I think, 8 points or more, but maybe 11 points that actually the applicants had to file for. Again, speed to market, one of them, hiring MWBE, veterans. I mean, it was all laid out in that legislation. Similarly with the downstate licenses. So again, following that language restrictions, or I should say qualifications laid out, it's going to be a very interesting process. But it will be, we set the minimum bid for the license at $500 million. And from there, 500 million and up. And then we'll take it from there. In my opinion, it'll hover around 750 million, but it could go higher. Who knows?
Okay, terrific. One wild card question. We were just talking about the Jets stadium plan back when you were in the New York City Council. The New York Jets have an out in their stadium. What was it? MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. They have an out in 2025. They can opt out of their lease.
Right.
I guess, which I don't know if it's with the New Jersey Exposition Authority, wherever the state authority is.
Keep an eye on that.
Are you aware of that?
I knew it was coming up. I know it was 2025. I knew it was coming up because that's what we spoke about when we were in the council at the time. Others, I'm a Jet fan, so I'd love to get the Jets back. I was all for the West Side Stadium, even though it was a little tricky. There was no tailgating. They didn't want cars there and everything else, a little different. But the fact that it was a closed or domed stadium, which allowed us to use it year round for other things, other venue for other events. I love the idea of getting the Jets back. So
they're playing in somebody else's stadium. I don't care what you call the stadium. East Rutherford, New Jersey is Giants country. Yeah. And I just felt, the Jets eventually had to return home to Queens. They spent 15 years in the new facility. They have an opt-out. Would you be supportive? I know you just basically answered the question, yes, but would you as a lawmaker be supportive of efforts to bring the New York Jets back to Queens? And if so, where?
Yeah, that's the I guess $1 billion question is where. We just went through this whole Bills Stadium issue. Now, that was an adventure, and so therefore it would be where. Certainly somewhere within the 5 boroughs. Love to see it, but listen, I think there's a possibility of finding a site. Building it is another issue, but I'd love to see it. I'd love to work on that. I really would. When I was in the city council, I was so upset that we lost the opportunity to bring the Jets back. I actually started a draft legislation that said you can only use the name New York if you played in New York.
There's a lawsuit over that right now.
And you know what? I was told quickly stop, because you don't realize how much revenue New York makes, even from the New York Jets and New York Giants. So we didn't want them to be called New Jersey Jets and Giants. We would lose out on that revenue. But I was so incensed about, if you're going to play it elsewhere, you got to play in New York if you're going to be called a New York team. So.
Well, I think I have a simple solution that will solve all the problems. Okay, we grant Steve Cohen a casino license, you give him iGaming, next year, and bring the Mets back to New York. Make it a package deal. Steve Cohen has to be at the apex of everything and flush with these new revenues from a land-based casino and all the associated development around the ballpark, and iGaming license. Of course, an online sports betting license. It's pocket change to him to bring the Jets back to New York City, and in particular in Queens. So I don't know. That's my dream scenario. Even though I'm a New York Giants fan, I respect and admire and appreciate the history of what Shea Stadium meant to the New York Jets. Were you at any of the games back in the old days at Shea?
No, but realizing that Shea was home of the Jets, the Mets, who else was there? For a brief moment, the Yankees were there when they were rebuilding Yankee Stadium. But Shea Stadium was the place to be for New York sports at one point. But I love the way they used to reconfigure Shea Stadium from a baseball field to a football field. It was really weird. But listen, we may have planted the seed right here tonight for the Jets coming back to New York. You never know.
Well, this is the first show that has even broached that possibility, so you better believe it will be out there very soon.
2025 roll around real quick.
It's not unrealistic, Senator Addabbo. That's the Kansas. I'm sorry. I think they're talking about luring in Kansas, the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas recently passed a sports betting bill. It was enacted into law, one of only 2 states that passed a sports betting bill this year, and 80% of the state tax collections are going to be earmarked towards luring a professional sports franchise to the state of Kansas. And they're focused on the Kansas City Chiefs, who don't play in Kansas, but play in the state of Missouri. But the Chiefs' lease with Arrowhead Stadium doesn't run out until 2032. And they're already talking about that possibility. Yet lurking here, right in the New York metropolitan area, is a lease for an NFL team that expires in 2.5 years, and nobody is talking about that.
Until now.
I think between the wealth of Woody Johnson, potentially Steve Cohen helping broker a deal like this, with your support and my vocal support on this podcast, I think we can get a deal done.
Let's see.
Okay.
Let's put the pieces together, Dan. Come on, let's put the pieces together.
All right. It begins tonight.
It does.
Return the Jets to the rightful place in Queens County.
And, and all due respect to Kansas and Missouri and Kansas City, we're New York. If that alone is not a bargaining chip to bring a certainly a credible organization, a franchise here, I think that's what makes us great, in the fact that we can lure these, franchises here because we are New York. We're mobile sports betting. We are the sports capital of the world. And that's part of the reason why mobile sports betting exploded in January of this year and just has been great for us.
Yeah.
So I think, it becomes part and parcel when we talk about possibly bringing the Jets back. That is New York. New York needs a football team.
Well, we're going to need you in office then. So tell us, which ties into the next topic. I was going to save that for the end of the podcast. But you've been a lawmaker either through the city council or on the New York State Senate since 2001. This entire chapter of your professional career has been public service, yet you have to go through elections, unfortunately, and we can't appoint you for life as much as I would like to. So you're running for re-election this year. Can you tell us about the process when the primary is and how people can vote, maybe even move into the 15th district?
Yeah, that's true. We'll take them. And I appreciate it. I still consider it a privilege and an honor to be an elected official, a public servant. The people put their faith in you to be their voice up in Albany, do the work in the community. And again, it's a privilege and an honor. And every 2 years we put our job on the line and we say, here's what we've done. And, if you want me to go back and work for you, I will. And this year it's August 23rd because they changed our lines and we didn't run in June. The court said we had to run in August 23rd when everybody's away and, having a good time in August. So my concern is that most people don't know it's about August 23rd. And so we're out there educating people that there is a primary August 23rd. In my area, I'm the only race in town. My congressional colleagues don't have a race. So it's me, it's my seat. And so we hope that people do come out and vote. But I do have a primary August 23rd and a general in November. Okay,
how many registered voters are in the 15th district where you're running? Do they have to vote from the primary as registered Democrats, or it's open to anybody?
Registered Democrats, okay. Right. There's roughly 170 some odd thousand registered Democrats. It's a 315,000 person population. It's about, again, leans Democrat, but like I said, it's just a question of getting people out to vote. It's hard enough to get them in June, let alone August 23rd. But I do hope people come out and vote.
Yeah. Does your district, can you discuss the sort of the geographic parameters of your district? How is it Howard Beach? What other?
No, you see, that's, unfortunately, after 20 years due to redistricting, I've lost Rockaway, Broad Channel, Howard Beach, parts of Glendale and Mass, but those are out. And I hate that because, again, part of these areas I've represented for 20 years. But now my new district will include a sliver of Howard Beach, and then Ozone Park, Woodhaven, Glendale, Middle Village, Regal Park, Forest Hills, Richmond Hill, and South Richmond Hill. Richmond Hill, and that is the new area, Richmond Hill and South Richmond Hill, but it's a reunion because I had them 10 years ago when I was started in the Senate and also in the City Council. So it's a reunion with many of my friends in Richmond Hill. But it's a very diverse Queens district. I love it. A very working class district, and I look forward to representing them.
Any parts of Brooklyn?
Nope, we're all in Queens.
Okay. All right. Queens. So listen, to our vast audience out there on the internet, if you want the Jets back in New York City, if you want iGaming, if you want casinos in Queens or online sports betting tax rates changed, you have to send Senator Addabbo back to Albany. His work isn't done yet. No, and it's unfortunate that every 2 years or every 4 years? Every 2 years. So I'll go on record with the official conduct detrimental endorsement of Senator Joseph Addabbo Jr. As Senator for the 15th District of New York State. Now, will you continue? So there it is, the official endorsement. Are you going to remain as chair of the New York State Racing, Gaming, and Wagering Committee? I always mess up that name.
Yeah, Racing, Gaming, and Wagering. I love to, and I got a great team. My legislative director, Shanna Cassidy, great. Chris Higgins has moved on to another position. I got Paul McCarthy. We have a great team up in Albany. And the idea is this. We do have unfinished business. We have a horse racing industry that we have to help, in my opinion. We've done little things like helping their health care and doing certain things to make horse racing. But if we incorporate horse racing even more so into mobile sports betting, maybe we can help the industry. We do need to always look to improve mobile sports betting. You mentioned iGaming, but the addiction issue, as we spoke to Oasis, the agency that handles addiction, and they got their hands full with opioid addiction and alcohol addiction, and all the other addictions. But new to probably the plate is the increase about gaming addiction. And we need to be ahead of the curve here, both in terms of awareness, education, pre-addiction, and then address, obviously, the addiction issue. With the addition of gaming in New York State, we have additional new funds going into addiction programs, which now we can expand and look to do 24/7 peer-to-peer addiction counseling, which is critical. So there is a lot of unfinished business to do, and I look forward to doing it 2023. I'll be talking about iGaming. So like I said, there's a lot of work to do, and I do it so I don't make my staff get too bored. So,
all right, I want to come back to responsible gaming in a second, but just to confirm, if you're reelected, are you automatically going to be the chair of the Racing, Gaming, Wagering Committee?
It's not automatic. It's up to my leader, and I give her, again, much appreciation, Andrew Stewart Cousins, for allowing me to be chair of this Racing, Gaming, and Wagering Committee and continue the work, but it is up to my leader.
Well, we endorse you for that as well. Are they okay? 2 endorsements tonight on Conduct Detrimental. Let's talk before we turn to the gaming. That's right. Maybe 3. You know these things come in 3s. So hold on for 1 second. I may have one more up my sleeve. There's also going to be a gubernatorial election. The governor is running for re-election against, I guess, a Republican lawmaker who recently was in the news. He was unfortunately the subject of a just an insane person attacking him. Was it Lee Zeldin?
Yes, that's the governor candidate.
Does the identity of the governor? I think the obvious question is the answer is going to be yes, but how important is it that the governor be reelected in order to pursue these gaming objectives?
Well, again, you look for continuity. We've started a really good working relationship with the Hochul administration, Rob Williams over the Gaming Commission. What I appreciate, and it's a lot different, it's a breath of fresh air from the previous administration, the willingness to have these conversations about gaming, horse racing, iGaming, the willingness to talk about how we can improve addiction programs, jobs, educational funding, revenue. It's a great, like I said, a breath of fresh air, because this administration, the Hochul administration, the Governor Hochul, really just open-minded, wide-eyed into thinking about, hey, let's at least look at these issues, where previously we were throwing these idiotic excuses like, oh, it's unconstitutional. You can't do mobile sports betting. It's unconstitutional. And then COVID comes, gives us a $15 billion deficit, and all of a sudden, mobile sports betting is constitutional.
But Governor Cuomo.
So that's what I really appreciate about the professionalism of the Hochul administration, and hopefully it does continue. So we have that continuity, and working with the Gaming Commission, that we can again look to credibly, methodically, safely regulate gaming and expand it in New York.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets over acquiescing to Governor Cuomo's insistence on a 51%, or at least an RFP process where the baseline was going to be 51%? I mean, no one has a one of these fortune cookies where you can predict what's going to happen, but you basically missed the end of his governorship by a couple of months, and you might have been in a different situation with incoming Governor Hochul.
Yeah, we didn't know. We didn't know at the time when we were negotiating mobile sports betting and actually doing the language and actually passing it. We really didn't know the situation of the change in governor administrations. So you negotiate, and we got about 60, myself and my counterpart, my good friend Gary Perlow in the assembly, we got about 65% of our bill, our version, into the governor's bill. The structure, though, is his. The 51%, the New Hampshire kind of structure, that's his. Seems to be doing well for the state. And, $9 billion in handle, is amazing in 7 months. That's record breaking. It's amazing. But it's a different structure than I and Gary and I thought about. And I think it's something that we'll have to look at least discuss in the upcoming session.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, the handle, the revenues, I mean, New York was going to knock the lights out no matter what. Doesn't matter what structure you came up with. The handle would be this outsized handle that would blow through every record. But here you have operators that now are in a situation where they're really forced to bid to 51% to be able to basically compete in this marketplace. Otherwise, they're going to be left out in the cold, and the hope was down the road, maybe the tax rate and the structure could be overhauled to be more in line competitively with what other states do. So now that you're getting the benefit of all these added revenues from a higher tax rate, is there this disinclination to give any of it back? Or can you justify it by saying if we lower the tax rate, then they'll do a lot more marketing, and overall the pie will grow and the state's share of the tax collections will grow through a more competitive environment, rather than saddle these companies with a tax rate which leaves their marketing costs and marketing investment to a bare minimum?
Yeah, if we go first on the operator side, one thing that the state was very clear about from day one, the outset was 51%. That was not a hidden fee, or I should say a hidden number. Yeah. They knew they were negotiating with New York to get the license, but at 51%. So, for the operators, I don't really have sympathy at this point, because they knew of the 51%. They still bought into it. They got 8 million new accounts. They got 8 million new customers from it. And then they chose to, greatly spend a lot of money in marketing and give backs and everything else, and free play. And and it was obscene the amount of money that was put into marketing. We appreciated it because there was the incidental revenue that we got from this to the state in terms of marketing, but it was over the top at a certain point. But that's up to the operator, and now I can't see them complaining about it. It was something they knew about, but it's not to say we're going to ignore that. It bubbled up a number of times, actually, two different versions, two different bills, one in the Senate, one in the Assembly, both looking at reducing the tax rate. One incorporated an addition of skins or additional operators. But you know what was great about it, Dan? The fact that we were willing to have a conversation. We ran out of time, both in the budget and in the session, but we were willing to talk about it. We didn't sit back and go, oh, we are done with mobile sports betting. It's successful. And we folded our arms and watched it go. No, we were still willing to talk about how do we improve this? How do we work with this, make it better? So that willingness to not just stand by, but actually to do something proves a lot, shows a lot. And I think that's going to continue into the next session. We'll see. But we have to make sure that, by tinkering with the tax rate or increasing the skins, that it's not going to reduce our educational funds or revenue to the state, because then it would be just detrimental to the state as a whole. So we'll have these conversations. We'll let the financial analysts figure it out as well, give us some proposals, and we'll see.
Okay. Will this be something that would have to be done as part of the budget, or could it be?
There's a fiscal element to it, and all fiscal items, in my opinion, should be in the budget. So it would be part of the budget.
Okay. You've spoken before about how we can help the horse racing industry, or how the New York Senate and Assembly could help the struggling horse race industry. Where does sports betting fit into, where does horse racing fit into the sports betting landscape? I remember a couple of years ago when you and I first met, I think we were on a panel at Cardozo Law School. And at that time, and a couple of years thereafter, you were championing a measure that would include horse racetracks, OTBs, and even professional sports arenas within the definition of an affiliate for purposes of online sports betting, where the online sports betting companies would be able to situate or place kiosks at OTBs, racetracks, and sports stadiums. Is that how you intend to benefit horse racing? And is that still a viable proposal going forward?
Yeah, I haven't abandoned that idea at all. Again, we have some issues with the kiosk idea. We'll figure those out. But again, it's something that we will discuss toward the end of this year, preparation for next year. But kiosks at racetracks, arenas, stadiums, OTBs, to try and figure out a way to make mobile sports betting accessible and help these other industries. I consider horse racing a sport. It should be part of mobile sports betting. I believe right now only NYRA and Caesars have a agreement. If you go off the Caesars app, you can go right onto NYRA Bets. But I think it needs to be a more robust, accessible app for New Yorkers throughout the state. So that's one thing that we can do to incorporate better horse racing with mobile sports betting.
Well, Senator Addabbo, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when there weren't any casinos in New York State, and the horse racing industry predated the casino industry by nearly a century, right? By 73 years. Will there ever be any steps or efforts to put the horse racing industry on parity with the casinos for purposes of sports betting? What I mean by that is, instead of using the affiliate concept and folding everything within this casino-centric sports betting model, would you ever consider another constitutional amendment to put the horse racing industry and maybe even the professional sports franchises on parity with the casinos for purposes of operating sports betting? It seems to favor this incumbent structure is a vestige of the 2012 legislation and ballot initiative, and it really relegates the longer standing industry in gaming in New York to basically a subservient position to the casinos. Will that ever be changed?
I really couldn't tell you, because it is a constitutional amendment, which is a 3-year process. So where would we be 3 years from now in terms of mobile sports betting, in terms of gaming in general in New York? That's a bigger discussion. I don't like to rule anything out. I like a discussion. I love the dialogue. It gives us options, and I like options. So, that's something that we could talk about certainly next year's session.
Okay. Speaking of options, there's also the issue of fixed odds horse race wagering. That's another mechanism by which the handle and the economic viability of horse racing can be, enhanced. Can you tell us, or tell me and our audience, what steps or efforts you'll make to bring fixed odds horse race wagering into the fold in 2023. Is that possible?
It's always possible. You know, we had the bill, obviously, once again, running out of time as we were doing other things, really concentrating on the downstate licenses being expedited. But fixed odds to me is something fair to do. I think like we did with mobile sports betting, at least Gary Pretlow and I, we included many underneath the tent to have their input to make sure when we did our mobile sports betting bill, it was a bill we could be proud of and get a lot of support for. And I think the same has to happen with the fixed odds, that basically we need to get as many people in the industry under the tent to make sure that we're doing this right, to make sure we got the support needed to go forward. So we were close last session. I would expect better odds in 2023.
Well, I mean, we have an experiment in New Jersey that's taking place. I mean, bet makers in Monmouth Park are working together in hand in hand in bringing fixed odds horse race wagering to New Jersey. I mean, that's not exactly going gangbusters yet, but I think it's an example of, some innovation within the horse race industry, and it could be, something that could, revive and help, sustain the horse racing industry in New York State going forward. Is there a lot of support from within the horse racing sector to bring fixed odds wagering?
A sector, a piece of the horse racing industry would embrace it. I think there was a lot of concern from others. And like I said, we'll have to delve into it a little further.
Okay. Last topic, although I think we could always end on the high note because, the New York Jets coming back to Queens, I think that's our podcast. We could have just cut it off at the 20-minute mark and you have your headline. You're going to be in Mike Florio's Pro Football Talk column tomorrow, depending on how we market this. Because it's the sleeping.
It's going to happen.
It's the sleeping sports law story of 2023, but we'll see. Let's close with iGaming. All right. You're going to be appearing at one of my favorite conferences in all of, the galaxy, which is the Racing and Gaming Conference at Saratoga, August 15th, 16th, and 17th at the Hilton Hotel in Saratoga Springs, New York. One of my absolute favorite places in the entire universe. Summertime, August in Saratoga. And you're going to be on a panel focused on the future of online gaming and iGaming over the next 5 years. I mean, I have the name of the panel here. It's called Online Casinos. How will online gaming legalization across the nation? Oh, I think I left out a word here, but it's a panel devoted to the future of online gaming across the country. Where do things stand in New York State? Because you introduced an iGaming bill in the 2022 legislative session. It did not advance, but was that just sort of a conversation starter for 2023? Can you elaborate?
It's part of the strategy, yes. We were so knee deep with the complexity of expediting the 3 licenses downstate and getting that language and pushing that forth in the budget, that throwing in iGaming kind of late in the budget was obviously not timely, but it served its purpose that I intended, and that was to get it out there, get us talking about it, getting any of the obstacles that might confront us up and running so that we can address them. And I love the way it worked out because we got a buzz of talking about iGaming in New York. And, I had a call recently with one of my colleagues who was a little concerned with expanding gaming in New York. And I said, listen, if you don't think New Yorkers are doing it already, you're fooling yourself. They are. Mm-hmm. They're doing it illegally or they're going to another state. The bottom line is once you regulate it, we saw this with mobile sports betting, once you regulate it in New York, you're going to make it a lot safer for a New Yorker to do iGaming. With not only more addiction funding, which it's in our drafted language, but with the measures and the protocols that are in there, the safeguards that are in there, you're going to make it a safer product for New Yorkers who, again, if they're doing it now, you don't know who they are. So I think we're in a good spot right now for iGaming. Again, it's a budgetary item. It could raise more money than mobile sports betting because your population is greater, those interested in iGaming. Other states, surrounding states, Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut are doing it already. So I love the conversation that is about to happen going into this year or 2023's budget. I look forward to the panel coming up in Saratoga. To me, it's going to be a great conversation. And those conversations are very important because they sort of lay the groundwork too for any possible issues that I need to address going forward. So I love to have those conversations and listen to see again what issues might lie ahead.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the timing, you're going to have this process for evaluating applications for the downstate casinos going on throughout late 22 and throughout 2023. How complicated does the iGaming discussion become when it's sort of in the same sphere as the decision making around downstate casinos? Does it complicate the issue?
Not at all, because again, the legislature is out of the gaming, out of the downstate license process at this point. That process for legislature is done. Now it's in the hands of the Gaming Commission and the governor. So now the legislature can focus its attention, at least gaming-wise, on iGaming. So I think they can go coincide with each other, and we have no problem.
Okay, I mean, with iGaming, you hear about these proposals in all these different states, but the fact of the matter is, it's been more than 10 years since the Department of Justice effectively authorized internet gaming. And here we are 10 years after the DOJ's 2011 opinion, now 11 years, yet only 6 states offer iGaming or online casino gaming. So how do you explain the disconnect between the authorization of sports betting with 34 states authorizing it in the last 4 years versus iGaming with only 6 states authorizing it in 12 years? Why the distinction, and why does it take a backseat to sports betting?
I think, in my opinion, number one, you have to have a governor of a particular state willing to, again, please have that conversation of whether to do it or not with iGaming. But secondly, iGaming is tricky. The population of which grows certainly much larger than mobile sports betting. So you're not just talking about the sports fan, you're talking about anybody, adult, who's willing to get on their phone or laptop or any other device and go do this gaming, whether it be any table game, let's face it. And again, if you do it 24/7, there is a danger, because you could be, just lying in bed and spending your monthly rent or your rent, medical bill or whatever it is, utility bill, and blowing your life savings. That's why I need to be very careful with iGaming. I actually floated the idea when we started out in New York, maybe we won't be 24/7. Maybe we should limit the hours so that we perceive it not so much as an online, digital thing, but maybe think of it almost like a brick and mortar where the doors are, at least results were like, it's not 24 hours, so that we look at it so that we can limit the hours of operation so that person's not at work, iGaming, or the person's not laying in bed at 3 a.m. doing it. So I think that's a great conversation to have. But the reason I think there's an apprehension is because of the dangers, more so associated with iGaming than with, say, for instance, mobile sports betting.
Okay, I mean, in Massachusetts, they are taking a close look at advertising restrictions around online sportsbook ads and sportsbook ads in general. Has the legislature, or have you taken a deep dive on how the advertising around iGaming could be managed so as not to perpetuate addictions?
I think it's premature, but it has been part of what our package would look like. So we saw mobile sports betting. If, again, I had many colleagues go, "Oh, Joe, I'm tired of seeing these commercials for mobile sports betting." And I get it, because they were quite popular and quite frequent. But that would be something that we could talk about, as a team, legislatively, about limiting the kind of marketing for iGaming.
Okay, I want to close this part of the discussion on iGaming with the Indian tribes. I mean, you and Assemblyman Pretlow made tremendous effort to include the Native American tribes in the online sports betting proposals that you've championed in 2019, 20, 21. They were left out of the bill that Governor Cuomo championed, and essentially they got revenue shares under some of the winning, bids, but they weren't earmarked or given licenses for online sports betting as you had contemplated in your earlier legislation. So going back to the drawing board for iGaming, how do you anticipate making up for that omission with OSB and putting the tribes on parity with other operators when it comes to iGaming?
Yeah, great point, Dan. I was so proud, again, of what we did with mobile sports betting, again, legislatively, Gary and I, our team, to really incorporate everybody under the tent, include them in the input of the mobile sports betting legislation. But the Mohawks, the Oneidas, the Senecas, we're all in on it. And with mobile sports betting under our variation, they were to either opt in or not, but they were thankful. The Native Americans were thankful that we'd even asked them to be part of the process. And I want to do the same thing if I could with iGaming. We'll see. We'll see how this all works out. We don't want to cannibalize any existing business or casino, but I think for the benefit of New Yorkers, to offer them the best product possible, the variation of apps or iGaming apps, I think is important. So I want to limit it to one or two. I want to see if we can get it broadly right across the board, so that, again, that kind of product is what New Yorkers deserve. Okay, before we leave, I appreciate and thank you for spending so much time with me tonight. I don't know when people are going to be listening to this, but we're recording at 9:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Senator Addabbo's in Queens. I'm in Hallandale Beach, Florida. We've covered a lot of ground as to looking back and also looking forward. As far as predictions and what do you think is realistically achievable in the 2023 session, when we're having a conversation a year from now, what do you think is going to be on the checklist of what you've been able to accomplish in next year's session? I think easy, the low-hanging fruit is the downstate licenses. I think we're trying to get that at least 3 times the $750 million, or roughly $2.5 billion. Recognized in this fiscal year, which gives us till March. So I think that gets done certainly sometime within the year 2023. And tinkering with mobile sports betting only to make it better for the people. I think that could be done. And then the biggest lift, I think, is the iGaming. But if you just go with fact, what we're losing possibly to other states, or the fact that other states are doing it surrounding us, to help New Yorkers maybe with an addiction, or to obviously safely regulate it. And let's face it, the federal aid that we witnessed for the COVID pandemic and all the billions of dollars, that's not a birthday gift. We don't get that every year. And so therefore we can't count on federal aid. So you're going to look for domestic revenue, internal in-state revenue. And there it is, staring you in the face, iGaming, significant revenue, significant source of educational funds. So I think this is a credible discussion to have during the budget process, and I believe it will be discussed. Well, I said that was the final question, but you've raised a bonus question here. Sure. What about the vast potential of esports? I mean, when you wrote when you wrote the sports wagering legislation in 2012, you had a very strict, narrow definition of sports pools. It essentially limited wagering on to actual athletic contests, which rules out the Oscars, the NFL draft, esports betting. They couldn't do the NFL draft. Oh my gosh, did we hear it? Yeah, what are you talking about? You can do it. So are you going to consider that for 2023, the NFL draft, esports, and who knows what else? Maybe the Academy Awards or everything you just mentioned, esports, Oscars, everything like that, all credible conversations to have, but you can't bite off more than you can chew as a state. We have methodically did things in every year over the past 3 years, right? We did mobile sports betting 1 year. We did, downstate licenses this year. I know what we can negotiate. I know what we can obtain to be realistic. While I'd love to do e-game, the bottom line is iGaming first. So esports, esports down the line somewhere, betting on the Oscars, somewhere down the line. I think next year we have to focus on one really good thing to have us laser focused, and that would be iGaming. I think the NFL draft would be low-hanging fruit as far as I'm concerned. New Jersey is offering it. A number of states offer it. You never know. You never know what might come up during a budget. You never know. Okay. Well, Senator Addabbo, thank you very much for joining me for this really fascinating conversation covering the entire spectrum of gambling in New York State, both the past and the future. I want to wish you luck in your primary on August 23rd. And if you're a registered voter in the 15th district, or you would like to move to the 15th district, the primary will be on August 23rd, and Senator Addabbo has our endorsement to be reelected to the New York State Senate. And if you want to meet and greet Senator Addabbo in person, he will be in Saratoga, New York on August 15th and August 16th. Will you be there both days? It's right before the primary, but I am going to try and be there both days. Yeah.
Okay, he will be at the Racing and Gaming Conference at Saratoga, August 15th and 16th at the Saratoga Hilton. They're going to have panels devoted to horse racing, mobile sports betting, casino gambling, iGaming, all the movers and shakers in the gaming landscape, except for me, are going to be there. I was supposed to speak, Senator. I was supposed to speak, but duty called. I was going to be on the sports betting panel. I had to back out. So you'll have to proceed without me and sort of carry that weight or that burden of making up for my absence.
It'll be hard to do.
Yeah, and if any of you want to attend, I can't think of a better place in New York State to spend a summer day than Saratoga Beautiful. Springs, New York. Beautiful. And the website is the Racing and Gaming Conference at Saratoga, which is put on by Spectrum Gaming. Tickets are available. They're very modestly priced, and you get to meet all of the key figures in the New York gaming industry, both on the regulatory, legislative side. Gary Pretlow is going to be there, and so many of the key operators and their representatives will converge in Saratoga Springs, New York. So there'll be a lot of interesting conversations occurring in the hallways, the hotels, and that amazing bagel store on that, Main Street?
It's right there. Yeah.
What a great neighborhood that is. I'm sorry I'm going to be missing it.
You'll be there in spirit.
I will, and I'll be there in actuality in 2023 if they'll have me back.
We'll send you a postcard.
Thank you. You're gonna have to send it a very long way, considering where I'm going. So maybe it's in my best interest that you leave some things on the table and not successfully completed, so we have something to talk about in 2023 that can merit me coming to this conference and being invited. So, Senator Addabbo, I wish you luck in your election, your primary. Good luck at the Saratoga Gaming Conference, and I really appreciate you spending an hour with me to discuss everything from gaming to the return of the New York Jets to Queens.
You heard it here first. We set the seed. Dan, I want to thank you as well for the opportunity. I want to wish all your watchers and listeners a happy and safe summer. Thank you.